Thank you all for joining us today. So we're joined by Kathryn Strachan, who's founder and MD of Copyhouse, and she's going to be talking us through a bit about her background, how she kind of started the agency. We're going to talk a little bit about how she set up, a bit about new business and how she's grown to date, and then we're going to delve into a few different areas about personal branding, her management and leadership style. And obviously, if there's any questions along the way or things that you want to know about, particularly, do jump in and feel free to ask them directly. You can sort of raise your hand and stuff like that. And yeah, I think just listen in and take note. But Kathryn, do you want to do a quick introduction as to who you are?
Yeah, of course. Hi, everybody. I am Kathryn Strachan. I'm the managing director and owner of Copyhouse. Though I just decided last night, actually, that I was going to promote myself to CEO. So now I'm the CEO of
Wow.
Copyhouse, which sounds far more impressive. And we're a content marketing agency specializing in the technology space. So we work with some big clients like Klarna and Meta and Cigna, but most of our brands are in the scale-up space. So after they get past the startup and they have, a marketing manager and are really looking to, take their brand to the next level. And when it comes to, what we do, we start with content strategy, so we can help them with like building customer avatars and their USP and, their core messaging, doing competitor analysis and content audits and setting the foundation for a really strong content strategy. And then we go into content production. So content production for us is copywriting, where we can write everything from white papers and ebooks to standard blogs and thought leadership articles and case studies. But we also do content design. So we can design everything that we write. We can design, the ebooks and the white papers and the infographics. And about 5 months ago, we launched a B2B social media service. So that service is going really well. We've built a team for it, and it's taking off. It has quite a lot of potential, especially in the current economic situation. So we do 3 main services: copywriting, content design, and B2B social.
Great. And I guess another example maybe of how you've been able to adapt and change, right? I think through the times, which I think we'll get onto a little bit, which is really interesting, launching new services. But yeah, clearly there's an ever-growing demand for content, right, for brands, and keeping up with the expectation of consumers is tough. So talk me through kind of how you got into this, right? Like your background, and then when you sort of realized you wanted to start your own agency and do this.
Yeah. I always say I kind of did it by accident. Accidentally ended up with a 25-person agency. So yeah, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I left university. I mean, I have 2 degrees in English literature. Books and words have always kind of been my thing. And yeah, I kind of went into copywriting and worked agency side, and then went freelance. And my freelance business very quickly took off, and it started to grow and grow. And, I didn't want to turn work away. So what I did instead was I started to bring in people to help and to support me. So, the first one was just another freelancer, but in about January 2020, started hiring. So, started to build a team. I never really set out intentionally to own an agency. We established as an LTD for tax reasons, because I started to make too much to, be on the threshold for a sole trader. So, was advised to become and set up as an LTD and, do that route. And I found a really old text the other day with a friend of mine, and we were trying to decide on a name for the LTD that I had to set up. And, he was like, "What about Kathryn Strachan?" And I was like, I kind of want something that doesn't have my name in it, in case I make it big one day and have employees. And 3 years later, I have a team of 25 full-time permanent employees. So it's funny how quickly things can change.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great journey. And in 3 years to get to 25 people, I think, anybody, even we're struggling at that, any agency, any owner will be with testament to say how successful that's been. So why kind of copyright? What did you love about copywriting, and sort of what did you maybe see in the world that you felt that you could change with your skills and your services?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I consciously like chose copywriting. It was just something that I could do, that I could do quite naturally, and that I was very good at. And I played to my strengths, which is kind of why I went down that career path, because my degrees taught me how to write. But then just taking it and translating it into more marketing situation was relatively easy for me to do. So, I mean, I didn't really set out with this big mission to, change the world. But, what did happen along the way, we used to be very generalist. We used to have a lot in travel and recruitment. And, when COVID hit, we were a team of 4, and I didn't want to furlough anybody or make anybody redundant. So what I did instead was, I looked at the clients that we did have. I mean, we had lost about half of our clients overnight. And, at that stage, I didn't even have contracts in place. So they didn't even have notice periods. Like, it was just a mess. Definitely have contracts now, definitely have notice periods now. Good lesson. But what I did was I looked at, what we had and what we had left. And I saw that we did a lot in fintech and technology, and that it was a really like strong area for us. And I also saw that there was quite a gap in the market because there weren't any other agencies that specifically did that for that specific audience. So we niched down really hard and went after, those spaces, and invested really heavily, invested in our marketing and our sales outreach, really invested quite hard. And that allowed Copyhouse to really, really take off, to really, seize the opportunity and to grow quite significantly during a very challenging time.
Yeah, and I want to come on to sort of thinking about niching and the impact that's kind of had on you as a business, because I think it's something that often people are quite scared to do. So kind of on this journey then, I guess, what have you found sort of most difficult in scaling up? Or has it been plain
Everything.
sailing?
No, I mean, it hasn't been all plain sailing. We've had we've definitely had setbacks, and we've had progressions. There's obviously more progressions than setbacks, which is the important thing. I mean, I guess things change so quickly, and it's really just keeping things up to speed with where the world is, but also where the company is, and making sure that these things are updated. We've definitely had some challenges along the way. We lost quite a big client back in April, and we needed to recover from that, and have only really just started since about August, come out of the woods after losing quite a sizable client. So it's all about really staying in the game, and you're gonna have ups and you're gonna have downs, but like your main focus, your only focus, is to stay in the game. And the longer you stay in the game, the more opportunities you create for greater success. So, you can't give up, you can't lose focus, you can't lose direction, you have to keep going.
That's like
As a very good friend of mine says, sometimes the only way through is through.
Yeah. See, and I like the analogy of sort of staying in the game. Firstly, it just sort of says you're clearly quite a positive person, right? And I think it
Try
sounds
to be.
it
Try to be.
sounds like you're able to sort of go up against quite adverse challenges, right, with positivity. And also, like, the way you refer to it as a game, I think it's quite interesting. Not saying that it's to belittle business, but does that kind of ring true to you? Because sometimes I sometimes look at new business and sales and growing a business like there is a bit of a game. Like, life is a bit of a game that you're sort of playing, and and if you sometimes you can treat it too overthink things. I think that can restrict your growth.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I say quite a lot is, what's the worst that can happen? And I think quite often, people are scared to take risks. They're scared to hire their first employee, or they're scared to do these things. But, what's the worst that's going to happen? You hire your first employee, and, you end up not having enough work for them, and you eventually have to let them go. Like, if they're really great, really high quality employee, they're just going to find another role, and, within a couple of months. So, I mean, it's really not that big of a deal. It's not nice to let anybody go, that's pretty shit. But what's the worst that's going to happen? So, being able to take calculated risks, and to think and to play. I mean, not everything is going to work. I mean, some things are going to work really well, some things are not going to work, or some things are not going to work how you thought they were going to work. And you don't really know until you're like in it. So you don't really know if if it's a good decision until it's actually starts to pay off, or starts to not pay off, and you go, oh no, this isn't working, we need to do things different, we need to adjust, we need to pivot. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it. You never know, right, until you try these things. But I think that mindset is also so important when it comes to new business, because like people come to us and they often expect us to have all the answers or a magic wand and turn things around, right? And I'm sure your testaments that you know how difficult new business is, how complicated new business is, and it's multifaceted. So I think you have to have that mindset of trial and error and testing and learning constantly. And so in that respect, in terms of new business, what's been your kind of general approach, and what's enabled you to grow, do you think, most successfully today?
Lots of things, it's accumulation of things, which means lots of activities. Yeah, because I don't think there's not one answer to new business. There's not one silver bullet. There's not just like one thing, you do that, you'll be fine. It's kind of a combination of lots of things. It's investing in marketing and investing quite heavily in marketing. It's my personal brand. It's, speaking and networking and building those connections and building those relationships. I mean, I've been a serious networker for years now, so I meet 50 new people every single month. I've got about one in-person event every single day where I'm going to an event or I'm taking somebody out for lunch or dinner, any of these things. So doing lots of activity like that. I mean, we do email outreach as well, and that works very well for us. So it's really a combination of things. I mean, having a really clear positioning helps as well, because, when you're networking and you meet people, and, I meet a lot of people, and when I meet people who say, we're a full service digital marketing agency that works with all industries. I'm like, right. Like, what do I do for you? How do I help you? Who do I introduce you to? Like, it's really unclear. Where, when I meet somebody that says we're a digital PR agency specializing in the healthcare space, like, right, I know people that I can introduce you for, I can put you up for things. Like, it makes it much easier to be able to think of that person when an opportunity comes up, or when there's a good person to introduce them to. So having a really clear positioning is quite important, I would say. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things I could go on.
Let's try and unpack some of them. I mean, let's start with positioning. I mean, I know that like the agency owners I talk to constantly, right, they will turn around and say, but we work with so many different clients, we offer so many different services, and how can I, why would I want to cut down my market, right? Like, niching to them feels like they're limiting themselves and their growth. So what would you say to an agency owner that sort of would say that to you and has the fears of kind of getting beyond that and wanting to niche?
Well, I mean, I think as a small agency, you can't possibly do everything for everybody. I mean, so you meet full service digital marketing agencies that have like 6 people. You're like, but there's like more than 6 like market areas of marketing. So how?
Yeah.
Maybe if you're like a big global agency like Ogilvy or something like this, you can have 10, 15 different services because you have 100 people that work in each department. So they really are specialists. But if you're a 6-person agency, you can't do that. I mean, basically you're muddying the waters and making your proposition really unclear, and also not really positioning yourself as a specialist, because if you do everything, there must be some things that you're better at than other things, and things that you're not very good at. You can't, nobody can be perfect. We can't, like, you can't do everything. Like, I don't know very much about PPC. I couldn't possibly run a PPC campaign if my life depended on it. I might be able to make it live, but it wouldn't achieve any results, and nobody should trust me to run one. But there are plenty of other things that I'm really good at. Like, obviously copywriting is, strength, and content strategy, and social, and content design. And if I wanted to launch a PPC service, I would need to hire somebody who is specialist in that. So I mean, when you have a clear proposition, it makes it clear what you do and what you're really good at. it also shows that you know what you're good at. So I think quite often these people don't niche down because they don't actually know what they're good at. They don't actually know what service they are the best at compared to the other ones. And they don't know what industry they do better in than other ones, because if they knew, what they really did, what they really did well, it would be a no-brainer. It's
Yeah.
maybe a little controversial.
No, no, it echoes a lot of the things that we talk about as well. And I think also it's about making a choice, right? So like you might be good at a couple of things, but I feel like a positioning is about moving from being sort of reactive to proactive, right? You can be the sum of the clients that you hire that sign you up, and you can just do lots of different projects, and you can be the sort of amalgamation of all these things, or you can actually make a proactive decision to say, these are the clients I want to work with, and this is the service I want to offer, and these are the type of business people I want to work with, right? And that's actually a choice. But I think people don't see it as a choice. They don't take new business into their own hands, and they think, oh no, we're just a result of who we win, which I think is quite a dangerous game to play, and they can get into a full 5-10 years down the line, and they're like, I don't know who we are anymore. We're just a
Yeah.
all these
I
things.
think it's about staying true to yourself. And, just because you start with something doesn't mean that you can't, kind of expand, but it's easier to start with one thing, and then expand than
Yeah.
to try to do everything and then contract. So, we started as very much like a copywriting agency, and, it's grown into, first it grew into, doing, well, when I was just a copywriter, so a lot of freelance copywriters as well don't do any of the strategy stuff, but I was quite good at, the ideation, and saw a clear need for the clients to have strategy so that they didn't have to think about anything in that process, because, waiting for a client to give you a brief instead of giving them the brief, is obviously more proactive, but lets you control the work to a much higher degree, so you can actually control what you're doing. So, I mean, our strategy kind of came after the copywriting, and that kind of evolved, and we've had that for a really long time now. But then, we used to hate, we'd write a really nice ebook or white paper, and it get handed off to a designer, and the designer would over design it, and they didn't know how to like work with content. And, the work that we had done on, an ebook or white paper was just kind of like obliterated by this over design that didn't showcase the copy in the right way. So we took that in-house and, trained our content designers on how to work with content, and, the nice balance between design and how it, and copy, and, made them work together. And then about 5 months ago, launched our B2B social media service and hired a social media manager, and, did that and did it properly. And, it's really taken off. And we're just about to hire a second social media executive. So yeah, grown a service that way. So, it's grown organically, and just because we started in copywriting doesn't mean that we're always going to do copywriting or only do it. There are other things that play alongside very nicely with it that are complementary, that make sense for us to offer and to offer under one brand. But yeah, I mean, I think people think that if they, choose a niche or, focus area, it limits their options, but it just makes your vision much stronger and makes the options at your disposal much more valuable. Like, the clients we've been able to win by being niche. So, when we won Meta, they said to us, we want to work with you because you have the experience in technology. And we win quite a lot of our deals that way because our clients need specialist writers. They want them. They have tried to work with generalist agencies and it hasn't worked. They've not gotten the results that they've wanted, or they haven't understood the technology, or, any of these things. So, quite often clients come to us, we just onboarded a new one today, who like came to us, was like, we really need people who know payments. So we're like, right, well, we've worked with Klarna and Tink and Module and and they're like, oh my God, that's amazing. And it quite often plays like that. So I mean, it's a massive strength to be niche. Yeah, to have a clear focus, but you need to be true to yourself. And I think at the very beginning as well, sometimes easier to be a generalist. So like I do like a pay it forward session where, every Thursday I take like a half an hour out of my day to, give somebody some advice and, do some consulting. Normally somebody who's coming up behind from me. And I had a question around like, I don't know what to niche in. Like, I'm just kind of stuck every time I try to go into a niche. Like, I end up giving it up and like I don't really know what to do and like unable to make progress because I couldn't decide on a niche. So I just said, just park that idea for a moment, do a lot of like exploration, discover what you really like and then come back to it, because it's better to make progress in some shape or form than to make no progress at all. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit like, in our early 20s when like we want to travel the world and do a million different things and we have no idea what we actually want to do as a career. And trying lots of different careers is quite a good idea. But then as we get a little bit later into our 20s and, we need to pick a career, we need to decide on what we're going to do so that we can build that. And I think, niching is kind of like that as well. So if you're in the very early stages, you might want to experiment, you might want to see where you belong and what you really like doing. But in order to get any real traction, in order to like build a career or to build a company, you kind of need a really clear proposition. So you need that really clear focus, and often that's going to come in the shape of a niche.
Yeah, and I guess it's going back to that, just being comfortable in not knowing, right, and exploring yourself, exploring your business, seeing where it could take you. And I think also the benefit there you talked about, like when those companies were coming to you, is about how much improved your conversion rate is, right? So like, because you've got that experience and because it is niche, your sales cycle and your conversion rate is probably much, much higher, because when you meet the right client, they sign up, sort of almost like straight away, whereas other clients, other agencies are having to convince and really fight and debate and try and convince people that they are the right agency, and that all eats at cost and time. That eats into profit and has all sorts of impact on the business.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it much easier to know where to invest your money as well. So, I mean, having a niche, so rather than just throwing your money kind of at the wall and hoping that something sticks in terms of marketing, exactly where to market because you know who you're marketing to. So like I'm off to Vegas next week to go to Money 2020, which is a big flagship event in the fintech space. And, I'm going because we specialize in fintech and, already have meetings set up and it's going to be quite a good event. But, I wouldn't be going to that if we didn't specialize in fintech, obviously.
Yeah.
But, we've gone previously and, we get quite a lot of very good deals from doing so.
Yeah, well, it drives your new business strategy. And then how do you kind of analyze your new business performance? I know we'll get into sort of personal branding, and I know you talked about like how you do a certain number of events and things that you get yourself out at and connect with and people, but like are you measuring things on a kind of monthly basis in terms of sort of maybe shorter term KPIs as well as thinking long term, revenue numbers that you want to hit? How does it sort of work?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we've got a 5-year plan financially, and where we want to be at each 5 years, and the value of the company, and the number of people we need, and all that sort of jazz. And then we have, we have a rev tracker that allows us to see our quarterly and our yearly and our monthly sales targets, and then we have a pipeline that allows us to track, where each kind of lead is within the sales cycle. So, we've got early stage and live and lost and won, and how old they are, where they are, what their qual score is. So how many, how likely they are to convert. We know all of these things definitely, and then we run a lot of our new business is driven by email outreach campaign that we run with a company called SoPro. So we have all the metrics from that in terms of open rates and close rate and like response rates and everything like that. So we have quite a lot of metrics. We obviously have our marketing metrics as well, and ranking on activity and where leads are coming from, because they should come from, for an agency, they should come from one of the 4 main sources. So what percentage is coming from where, and yeah, really looking at that.
And then in terms of then sort of other things like content writing, attending events, is this kind of like ad hoc, or is it kind of very regimented in terms of output? So like you must write a blog a month. I don't know, is there a newsletter a month? Is there a number of events you go to or sponsorships, or is it fixed, or is it kind of just like as and when an opportunity arises?
No, it's fixed. I mean, marketing needs to be done consistently and regularly in order to achieve any results. So, I mean, if you write like one blog a month or one every other month or whatever, you're not going to ever get anywhere. So no, it's fixed. We have a full-time marketing manager, and we have a copywriter who writes for our brand, and our social media manager does all of our social. I mean, it's all fixed. So I post 4 or 5 times a week on LinkedIn, a similar amount for the company page as well. We do 1 email newsletter a month. We probably do about 4 articles a month, but I also do an article for Forbes because I'm a Forbes contributor a month. Normally do about 1 speaking event a week. Normally go to like 1 in-person event. No, probably about 3 in-person events a week. We have a whole conference line up. So I'm at Money 2020 next week, and then at the beginning of November at Web Summit in Lisbon, and Money Live in Madrid at the end of November. And then we've got a couple of conferences booked in for February as well. We do our own events. So we do a monthly tech talk. So every month we have a panel on, and we talk about a different area of technology. I also do business bites with a friend of mine, and we do that every month, which is like a LinkedIn Live. Lots of other things happen as well.
I mean, that
Could just
sounds
continue on
like
and on and on.
it's quite a lot of stuff. And I think what I like about this conversation is, and if anyone's sort of watching, it shows you talked about the investment, right? And it is the investment. Like you've got investment in terms of staff and people that you've focused full time on this stuff, but your investment as well. It's an awful lot of activity, but you've seen the results, right? You're getting the results. You are growing as a result of this, right? And I just sometimes think that this is where, I don't know about your experiences, but where I've seen agency owners struggle so much, they want the growth. But if I was to ask them their investment of time and money compared to what you just shared right now, you'd be looking at like 2% of what you've just put in. They'd be lucky if they attend 1 event a quarter. They post on social hardly ever. The blogs are sporadic, couple a year. And that is, we see that all the time. So I think, what's great about hearing you talk is that you're showing what needs to happen in terms of an investment level and seeing the results that can come from that. So I think it's just trying to educate agency owners on sort of why they're not doing that, right? Why can't they do that? And I think some of that I sometimes feel is kind of not knowing where to start, or potentially sort of fears of sort of putting themselves out there. I mean, it doesn't strike me as you don't strike me as someone who's had that issue of those fears, but is there something, advice you can be giving to others who are maybe looking at building their personal brand or not investing so heavily? Where could they start, and how could they maybe get over some of those hurdles?
Yeah, I mean, I think having dedicated marketing resource really helps. So we have like a full-time marketing manager, so she only works on Copyhouse's brand, and having a full-time like dedicated marketing resource that doesn't work on clients is quite important. I mean, in terms of your personal brand, like, it does start on LinkedIn, and then it tends to branch out into speaking events, because as you build it, you get asked to do more speaking events, and you get involved in more things. And that just starts on LinkedIn. It starts with creating regular posts and, showing up regularly and creating content, kind of opening yourself up to who you are and putting yourself out there, or getting someone to put you out there for them. So, I mean, we do personal branding for a lot of our clients who, normally they come to us for personal branding because they're unable to do it themselves or don't feel confident, putting themselves out there. So it's kind of easier for us to kind of take over and to do it for them. But I mean, I guess it's just to get started. So many people get stuck on like, this post has to be 110% perfect. And if it's not 110% perfect, I'm just not going to post it. Yeah. But, perfectionism, don't let your perfectionism stand in the way of progress. It's much better to put a post out that doesn't perform super well than to not put anything out at all.
Yeah.
I mean, don't be offensive, don't say anything racist or sexist, or, don't be offensive. But as long as you're not offensive, there's very little that you could post that, is going to have an impact a year from now.
Yeah.
So try to be a good person and, not say mean things, and you'll be
Good advice.
fine.
That's good advice. And also just having maybe even if it's not being, but if your opinion is polarizing, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? It's
No,
sometimes
you'll probably get lots of good engagement on that.
exactly right. We often talk about that in terms of positioning and sharing things, is that people want opinion, right? People don't want people to just sit on the fence, and it's good to have that debate back and forth, and that encourages traction and things. So
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely be controversial, but perhaps be prepared for the backlash as well. So I always say that to clients who want to be a bit more controversial on social, is that's okay, but some people are going to have very strong opinions against you. So if you're not somebody that has very thick skin and can kind of take it on the chin without rising and creating a big scene or an argument or something, then don't
yeah.
post it. And it's what's the old saying about dinner parties? Avoid politics, religion, and religion at dinner parties. Similar for social.
We've all seen how those go after a few drinks. So let's so talk to me. I mean, obviously your masters of content strategy, you said get something out there. Where do you think they should start in terms of what should they be commenting on? Is there a construct, or is there some easy quick wins that you can think about of I don't know, just comment on the news? Or is it about work you're doing, or is there a I don't know, a playbook or some sort of construct that people can think to say, okay, these are some ideas of what I can do tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, with our clients, we run a half-day workshop and then create a brand social media roadmap off the back of it. And that social media roadmap identifies, the 4 or 5 pillars that they really want to be known for, that we'll then use as a foundation for creating content. So that makes it a lot easier, because then, on Mondays, instead of just trying to think of any idea, you can think of, okay, Monday is about entrepreneurship. So what am I going to talk about when it comes to entrepreneurship? Tuesdays maybe about content marketing. And you have these core themes, and that makes it a lot easier, A, for you to become known for those things, so you're not just talking about lots of very different random things.
Yeah.
And B, it makes it easier to think about what you should post. I mean, and this should connect with your audience as well. So I think a lot of people often forget about their audience, so they post about, I don't know, going to a yacht show or something, but their audience doesn't actually have anything to do with yacht shows. So, it doesn't necessarily connect or relate. So trying to think about who your audience is, what their lives are like, what they think about or engage with, and, how you can kind of start a conversation with them. And, it's basically just ideas that are conversation starters. So, how can you talk to your audience, and what do they want to talk about?
Yeah, and often, I mean, we do a lot of work on sort of personas, right, and challenges and pain points of the people that we're talking to. And I think sometimes as agencies, we're very good at doing this for our clients, but maybe not so much for ourselves, and realizing that actually we have an audience that are trying to buy us, let's say it's a marketing director, or it could be, in your case, a product manager or someone like that. Who knows, right? But each of those will have different challenges and different mindsets, different levels of seniority. And yeah, it's always having that in mind whenever you're posting, right, and thinking about what content you're putting out there.
Mm-hmm.
Is it essential for an agency owner to have a kind of leadership, or someone on the leadership team with a personal brand to survive, do you think? Or can people get by without one?
I mean, I think you probably should have one. I mean, if you look at any of the big agencies, they do have a front runner, whether it's Gary Vee or Stephen Bartlett. I mean, they do have a front runner. If you look at most of the big brands in the world, they do, because people buy from people. I mean, and you should probably keep it with yourself as well, unless your senior team has equity in the business or has a stake in it, because you could spend years building senior leader's personal brand for them to leave, and that leaves with them. So I mean, having somebody else who's not tied into the business with like the senior brand in the network. I mean, with the personal brand in the network is a bit risky because it's gambling on that person always being there, because if they leave, you lose that too. So I mean, we have built, senior leaders personal brands in Copyhouse, but it's predominantly driven through mine.
And do you ever see a conflict then between your brand and the brand of Copyhouse? Because I know sometimes agency owners have said to me, I don't want it to all be about me. Like you said, when you didn't want it to be called, Kathryn Strachan Limited or whatever, you were very adamant that you wanted it to be another brand so that it could be representative of the whole company. Is it all the same, or do you divide and go, no, that's my channel and that's the Copyhouse channel, and there's different?
No, they're different, and they should be different. I mean, because I am not Copyhouse. I run it, I own it, but I am not Copyhouse. I mean, Kathryn Strachan, is a person. It's me. So I'm a person, and I have interests that don't have anything to do with Copyhouse. So like sometimes I post about my family, or my values, and my values are reflective in Copyhouse, of course they are, but only to a degree, because there's other people who feed into those values as well. And when you build your personal brand, it is a separate brand, so you're going to be talking about some of the things that you do at work. You're going to be talking about what your company does, you're going to be talking about events and things like that, but it's from your point of view and your personal brand. So like, for example, like with this event, I did a post yesterday about it, but it was very much from my perspective. So, sharing some of the things that like I think make me good at new business, and, I think I even mentioned my husband, because he makes fun of me for making friends on the airplane, where like, that would not come out via Copyhouse because it wouldn't make any sense. I mean, what came out via Copyhouse was, managing director Kathryn Strachan is going on this event, come, learn about X, Y, Z. So it was far more corporate, where mine was, far more personal, which I think is probably the point of a personal brand. So ideally they should run parallel to each other and help support and build one another up, but be different. And your personal brand will outlast the company that you're at as well. So, I mean, I want to always run Copyhouse. It's my ambition to grow it and scale it and step back one day, and somebody else will take over. But yeah. So I mean, Kathryn Strachan, as my personal brand is called, will still be there, post Copyhouse. So it will always be there with me. So I mean, I think a personal brand is probably like one of the best things you can invest in, because it doesn't matter where you work now or where you're going to work or what you're going to do. It's always going to be there with you.
Yeah, and it's becoming ever more important, with obviously LinkedIn and social. And I mean, with LinkedIn, then, like, how do you have any other best practice advice of how you use it, like in terms of, are you connecting to people? Are you using different features? I know there's like LinkedIn Live, there's newsletters, there's obviously posts, there's blogs, tagging people. Like, are there things that you kind of go to or do, or things that you've picked up in the last few years that have really helped you build that brand?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. I'm going to be running I run training on personal branding, and anybody who's here is listening, happy to send you the link for that, because it's kind of comprehensive. There's so much. I mean, there's so many different ways that you should create posts. I mean, even things like including questions, it can encourage engagement. But yeah, I mean, how you reach out and who you reach out to, I mean, could give you an hour talk just on LinkedIn.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Just trying to any tips and things like that. But when does it then, in terms of leads, that sort of, obviously you're doing all this great marketing stuff, you're generating interest, I'm sure you're getting a lot of inbound leads, and you're doing SoPro, so you're obviously getting doing outbound at the same time. It'd be good to get a sense of like where more leads sort of come from. I don't know if you're tracking that, but then I was thinking, what's your process to then trying to close leads? Have you got that down to a T, or is that something you're kind of always testing and changing?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we have it down to a T. I mean, we normally have an initial meeting, and that initial meeting is kind of like a fact-finding mission, like, and an opportunity to kind of like judge how serious they are. Are they just browsing, or do they have a pressing deadline? do they have a clear idea of what they want, or are they just in the very early stages of sort of thinking about it and like kind of really narrowing it down from there? And then it depends, like depending on kind of how they fall, depends on what route they go down. So, if it's quite a serious opportunity, we think it has a lot of potential. It's, there's a deadline, there's a budget, there's all these things that help us to qualify it. We then do, a formal proposal, do it on Quiller, but we schedule a time to like go through the proposal with them and, answer any questions, anything that they, need to know or ask. A lot of ours, because of the nature of our work, takes the form of proposals rather than pitches, but sometimes we get asked to do like more of a bigger pitch in person. So yeah, we do the proposal and, answer any questions. And normally by that stage, we know, when we're going through a proposal with somebody, we know, is this going to go ahead or is it not? And yeah, I mean, normally we can close it then and there. So, it's relatively quick and easy for us to close deals. I think our average is probably about 1 to 2 months from start to finish in terms of closing. Yeah. I mean, if they're less serious, we might just send them some information by email. We might not take the time to do a full proposal. If it's a bigger opportunity, we might go into the office and do a big full pitch. Kind of depends, but it all starts with that initial meeting and kind of figuring out where they are and, what they're thinking about and, how we can help them.
Yeah, no, it sounds like you're doing a lot of good stuff to qualify prospects. And are you involved in all those pitches, or are you sort of letting the team, sort of stepping back from any of them? Because I know that's quite a hard skill to read somebody as to sort of how serious they are, ask those questions, and you're kind of looking to pick up on a lot of things like body language, tone of voice and stuff that, doesn't always come naturally to everybody. But I'm just interested if that's skills that you're imparting in the team and whether they've picked up.
Yeah, I mean, we are between BDs at the moment, so I'm back handling a lot of like the sales, but I'm normally not involved in new business to that degree. I tend to more get involved with like the bigger opportunities, that could really use my insight. But I do really enjoy sales, and I'm quite good at, or I think I'm quite good at it. So I quite like, I quite like being involved in sales, but do have people who help me, put together proposals and track things and keep spreadsheets maintained and, follow the process and everything. Because I mean, processes and organization aren't necessarily my strong suit.
Especially in new business, I think processes is something that is kind of a lot of people let fall by the wayside. You talked about like the consistency of marketing, which is so important. And we're the same. We have content calendars and things that we kind of maintain consistency over what we do. But what about on the nurturing of opportunities? So all those leads that kind of aren't yet serious to buy, is there a, looking into, do you have a CRM system? Do you kind of track and continue that one-on-one engagement and nurture? Because often a lot of agencies just kind of, they don't win, they're not serious, that's it. They kind of end their relationship with them, and then they don't build that long tail. So are you
Yeah, I mean, we do with some of them. So like depends on the brand and like the potential of the company as well. Because like sometimes, the really early stage startups, the chances of there being an opportunity there in the next year are slim to none. Other times, it's just bad timing because perhaps the company's going through a restructure or something, so they can't sign off right now. But like in 6 months, the restructure will probably kind of have finished, they'll be in a better place to kind of decide these things. So I mean, it depends on the company and like the potential and the possibilities, because not all calls that we screen out or don't work with are like actually going to turn into anything at any point. Some will, and some definitely won't. So we keep track of all of those, and the ones that we think have potential, we reach out to. Depends on how serious the potential is. It might be once a month, it might be once every 6 months. It depends on kind of the situation and why, because if it's just like, for example, we just had a lead come back through. I just did a pitch yesterday for it from like something that we've been working on since like the beginning of the year, and we had kept in touch with them maybe once every other month or something, and then in the beginning of summer things got quite serious again, but then our point of contact went off on sick. They had long COVID, so it got dropped for a while, but we still kind of kept in touch, and then it's recently been picked back up, and looks like it will go ahead within the next couple of weeks. So I mean, that's a lead we've probably been working on since January in some shape or form. And it's finally come to the point where it's like, we need this tomorrow. Like,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Yeah, we've got a
Yeah.
lead like that at the moment as well. Like they need, what's for one of our clients, but yeah, we met with them in, I think, March or April. We had a proposal on the table, and now they've come back. They haven't signed off. We're waiting for sign off this week. They want the TV advertising live on Boxing Day. So we're like, yeah, great. That's everything from
They
scratch.
always leave it till like the last minute as well. Like I've
Yeah,
been talking to you guys since like January, and now
yeah,
you need this big website done by like November.
yeah, yeah. They don't seem to care.
Okay.
Well, I think the important part is that, and anyone listening to this, is that it's nurturing, right? We look at things like whenever we're talking to prospects, and also it helps in your relationship with the prospect. If you go in, say your pipeline is really short and you're desperate for leads, right? You're desperate for a win. The way you interact with that prospect and what you say and how you treat them is going to be very, very different between whether you've got a long-term pipeline and you're all good and you don't need to win that prospect. They need you more than you need them, and you can be very relaxed. That gives off a lot of confidence, and that is more attractive to people. And every given engagement, if you speak to a prospect and you're like, look, if you need our help, let's chat, right? And that could be any time in the next 2 years, right? But we'll just continue talking to you. It's way easier than if you're kind of constantly fighting to sort of get leads in now, like every month, like I need something.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes you might not even hear from them, like when you email. Like you might send an email and they like might just not respond to you. But I think don't annoy them, but a month later, 2 months later, send them another email. There was another prospect that we did that with. We had done a project at like the beginning of the year and it went well, but it was a short-term project. I think we did an ebook or something like this. But we saw a lot of potential there, and we kind of kept in touch, and I've recently gotten really into going to lunches with people. I love to go to lunch. I like ask anybody who I want to work with, do you want to go to lunch? And that was the email that they said yes to, like, yeah, I want to go to lunch. And yeah, took them out for lunch, and they've now become a retained client for our new social media service. So now we're doing a retainer with them and working with them every single month. So I mean, that would have been another one that would have been easy to like just not talk to again, because there was maybe like a 6-month period where we were emailing them and they just didn't reply. But sometimes people don't reply just because they don't have an update, not because they like hate you or don't want to talk to you, but because they don't have an opportunity for you. They don't have an update. They maybe feel a little bit guilty about not having an opportunity because they do want to work with you, but they just don't have anything to say. And they're very busy with other things. So they just see your email, think about you briefly, but maybe don't have anything to say. But, as long as you're not like pestering somebody, just checking in on them, like in the way that you would, an old friend who you maybe haven't seen for a while. I mean, you're not going to send them 50 messages in a night, but you might drop them a line every now and again and just be like, hey, how you doing? How's life? It's about relationship building, really. Just spending time with people and, getting to know them and just being nice. Being nice really helps.
Yeah. No, I think that's brilliant advice. I mean, it's like exactly you said, it's relationship building. It's just being casual. It's just being helpful, being friendly, not being overly pushy. And we are actually writing, with Halloween coming up, we're writing a piece about ghosting, right? Which is what you're alluding to and how people just ignore you. But I think you've kind of answered the question there. And I think it's like, we're all frustrated by ghosting, right? It's nothing worse, right? When someone doesn't get back to you. But I think it's always trying to understand, firstly, how you deal with it, right? And I think that's a lot about not being impacted by other people's actions, right? It's on you to sort of how you manage that. Again, if you're focusing on a big pipeline and you've got 10 pitches over here, if one ghosts you, you're not really going to mind that much because you've got another 10 that you can focus on. So you focus on what you can control, not be affected by people not coming back to you. And then also it's that kind of empathy and understanding that you said about, as agencies, we move at 1,000,000 degrees. We're so fast all the time, and we expect
Brands move really slow.
so slow. And that's it. And that's it with everything. Even my wife was looking for, for work, and when she's looking for a job or any leads, and then we're thinking like, why aren't they coming back to us? And all those things, like you talked about, like they're waiting for budget sign off, they're just not sure what to respond, or they want to respond but they don't know how to respond, and that gets in the way, I think, a lot of the time.
It's true. It's definitely true. I mean, and just not taking it. I mean, there's a great saying of take nothing personally. It's one of like the golden rules of life. And it's really hard to do, but I think the more you can kind of embrace that and just not take anything personally, the better, especially in sales. I mean, but it also depends on like how much effort you've put into it. So, if we've done a full pitch, I expect a response. So I'll chase a little bit further because we've put a lot of work into creating a big presentation. But if you've just had a call with somebody and it was a nice call but there was no real opportunity there, then yeah, okay, you might not hear from them. So I mean, I guess it depends. And yeah, it depends, depends on how much work you've put in. Yeah, because like a big pitch, I mean, they need to give you an answer. And so I'll maybe push a little bit harder to get an answer on like, is this going to go ahead, and if not, why not? Yeah.
Yeah, it's really unfair. And I actually think like one of my ideas on this is that if you are going to pitch, you kind of write up like this mini contract to say like, right, if we're going to invest this amount of time in your brand and your pitch, then you have to give us a response and feedback, win or lose. And if not, you have to pay for the cost of us pitching. And I think just maybe having that sort of initial thing about how important it is for you to get that feedback might just change the dynamic. But I think,
Yeah, no, I think it's true. I mean, we don't pitch very often. We don't really need to. I mean, that's another benefit in niching. You don't often have to pitch. But yeah, I mean, it's really unfair when you do a bunch of work into a pitch and like hear nothing at all, or like find out, you need to ask how many other agencies they're considering. I once forgot to do that and found out that they had 8 other agencies pitching. It was like, right. So our chances of winning that were like 12%. That's like really great. Yeah.
Just talk. We've got a few minutes left, but I know you've been trialing the sort of hybrid working and 4-day week and things like that. Just talk to me about your approach to that and your philosophy. How have you embraced that? Are you seeing any challenges? Is it empowering the team, or is it not working?
Yeah, I mean, we've been we've been fully remote from the beginning of the pandemic, and our team spread across the UK. I mean, I spent the last year traveling Latin America and running my company from abroad, which had no impact on the company whatsoever, but it's nice to be back now. And then, yes, since the beginning of August, we have been trialing the 4-day work week. And that's been going really well. I mean, everything's been delivered on time. Some results are still a little bit slower to come through, but it is obvious that we are able to deliver everything on time, and it's really good for employee attraction point of view as well, because it gives us a really nice USP for our employer branding. So I mean, it's going quite well, which is good. And yeah, it proves that you can do 5 days and 4, so everybody gets paid the same. We all have Fridays off. And yeah, continue to deliver, and everything runs on time, and none of our clients have been left in the dust or anything like that. They got the same service, they got the same deliveries, they just got it in 4 days instead of 5.
Yeah, that's great. And obviously, and then in COVID, I know there was an award, isn't there, that you guys won, which was Best Response to Change Award, right? So just talk us through that briefly and kind of how what you saw and what you were able to adapt to. It sounds a bit like the social media offering that you kind of identified and then launched.
Yes, I mean, this was the best response to change from the drum, and we didn't win it, but we came highly commended last year, and we've just been shortlisted again. So maybe we'll win it this way around, knock on wood. Yeah, I mean, that's really from how we responded to the pandemic, our niching down, growing the company, investing in our marketing, and continuing to kind of pivot and adjust to change as needed so that we can drive the company forward. I mean, we ultimately did Well, I don't think the pandemic's over, but we ultimately did quite well out of the pandemic by, niching really hard and investing in the right areas. And, it meant that we could grow rather than, having to make redundancies or furlough anybody. So, I mean, we were shortlisted due to how we responded to the situation at hand. But yeah, we've been shortlisted again, and I don't know what's going to happen this time.
Well, you have to keep us posted. I mean, I think that I put that down to what sounds like very level-headedness and bold decision making on your part to sort of to do that, right? I think that sort of comes into it, but you don't. Yeah, as I say, it's like not being phased. I think is such an important element to what you're talking about here, and I think that allows you to sort of trial and test new things, but as I say, not taking things too seriously. So if it doesn't work out, then that's fine too. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else has had any more questions. I was the last thing I was going to ask about was if there's any sort of books or people out there who really have inspired you to date that you could maybe share and give advice to other people that might be listening.
Well, Spencer Gallagher is my mentor in our NED, and he's greatly influenced what we do at Copyhouse. And he wrote the book Agencynomics. So that's a book that's really heavily influenced everything that we do. But we work with Spence and Pete on a 4-hour a month basis where we do a board meeting every month with them, and they've really helped put in most of these processes and systems that I was talking about. So I mean, I would highly recommend them in the Agencynomics community and the Agencynomics book. And I mean, just any time that you can spend with them is incredibly valuable.
I think getting external perspective, even I'm seeing the support that other people have been there, done it, it's invaluable to scaling a business. All right, great. Well, look, thank you for coming on, and I think that was really inspiring. And I mean, I learned a lot, and I'll be watching you build your personal brand.
Thank you. I haven't done a post today, actually. I need to go do one.
What's it going to be on? Do you decide in the moment, or is it going to be? Is there
I've got an idea. I've got an idea. Yeah. I tend to plan it out in advance, but I didn't do it this Sunday, so I need to. I'm a little bit behind. I'm a little bit off my schedule, but I'll get back on track.
Nice. All right. Well, we'll look out for it. Thanks, Kathryn.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys. Take care.